Vanessa Cole stood in the doorway of my cubicle, holding 2 coffees, and before I could even say good morning, she said, "I need you to marry me for 4 hours on Saturday." I nearly knocked my monitor off the desk. "I'm sorry, what?" "Not legally," she said, like that was the part I was confused about. "Pretend. My father's retirement gala. I need a date, and every single person I could ask is either married, related to me, or someone I have fired." She set one of the coffees on my desk without asking if I wanted it. "You're the only person in this building I trust not to embarrass me." I'm Nathan Cole, no relation, which is a coincidence that would cause exactly the kind of confusion you're imagining for the rest of this story. And at the time I was 27, working as a copywriter at Halstead Marks, a mid-sized branding agency in Seattle. Vanessa was 30, the youngest creative director the firm had ever hired, and the woman who had rejected 11 of my headline drafts in a row before finally approving the 12th with a single word, "fine." That was the extent of our relationship. Professional, efficient, occasionally terrifying. "Why me?" I asked, still holding the coffee like it might be a trick. "Because you're a good liar," she said. "You once told the Kessler account we'd always planned to pitch 3 concepts when we'd only prepared 1. You improvised 2 more in the elevator. That was a crisis of professional necessity." "Exactly. I need that energy on Saturday." She glanced over her shoulder, lowered her voice like the printer might report back to HR. "My father's entire board of directors will be there. My ex-fiancé will be there. My mother will be there asking why I'm still single, in front of the ex-fiancé, in front of the board. I need one night where I'm not the case study." I should have said no. There were a dozen sensible reasons to say no, starting with the fact that she signed off on my performance reviews, and ending with the fact that I had spent an embarrassing amount of energy over the past year not noticing the way she tucked her pen behind her ear when she was thinking, or the way she said "actually" right before she disagreed with you, like she was giving you one last chance to be right first. "What's in it for me?" I asked instead, because apparently my self-preservation instinct had left the building. Vanessa considered this. "I'll stop rejecting your semicolons. You reject my semicolons on principle. They're undisciplined. Fine, I'll owe you a favor. One favor, redeemable within the calendar year." I stuck out my hand. "Deal." She shook it once, firm, like we'd closed an account rather than agreed to spend an evening pretending to be in love. "Wear the navy suit," she said, already walking away. "Not the gray one. The gray one makes you look like you're testifying." The gala was held in a hotel ballroom downtown, all chandeliers and string quartets, and a guest list that made me feel underdressed even in the navy suit. Vanessa arrived in deep emerald, her hair loose instead of the tight twist she wore at the office, and for a second, just a second, I forgot we were supposed to be acting. "You clean up," she said, looking me over. "You say that like you're surprised." "I am, a little." She looped her arm through mine with the practiced ease of someone who had rehearsed this in a mirror. "Rules. We met at a mutual friend's wedding 14 months ago. You're charming, but not slick. You laugh at my jokes, but you're not a pushover. And if my mother asks about children, you deflect to me." That's oddly specific. My mother is oddly specific. We made it through cocktail hour without incident. Vanessa introduced me to board members whose names I forgot instantly, and I found myself falling into a rhythm with her that felt less like performance and more like something I'd been doing my whole life. Finishing her sentences when she paused for effect, catching her eye across the room when someone said something absurd, letting my hand rest at the small of her back like it belonged there. Then her mother found us. "Vanessa, darling, you didn't tell me you were seeing someone." Diane Cole had her daughter's exact bone structure and none of her restraint. Her eyes swept over me like she was pricing a used car. "And who is this?" "Nathan," Vanessa said. "We met at Priya's wedding." "The Kowalski wedding? I don't remember a Nathan." "It was a big wedding, Mom. I remember everyone at that wedding." Diane's smile sharpened, including the bartender's name. I felt Vanessa's fingers tighten slightly on my arm. the only crack in her performance all night. This was the moment where the entire plan could unravel, where 4 hours of careful choreography could collapse into her mother's raised eyebrow. So I did the thing I do best under pressure. I improvised. We actually met at the after-party, I said smoothly. Priya's cousin's place. Vanessa was arguing with someone about whether Casablanca was overrated. It is overrated, Vanessa said automatically, some old argument surfacing on instinct. It is not, and that's exactly what I told her, and somehow we ended up talking until 3 in the morning about the ethics of nostalgia in filmmaking. Diane looked between us, something in her expression softening slightly. That does sound like her. She's very committed to bad arguments, I said. They're not bad arguments. Vanessa's mouth twitched. You're just wrong. Her mother laughed. Actually laughed, a real one, and drifted off toward the bar, apparently satisfied. Vanessa exhaled and turned to me. How did you know I hate Casablanca? I didn't. I guessed. You seem like someone who has strong, incorrect opinions about beloved classics. That's frighteningly accurate. She studied me for a second longer than the moment required. You're better at this than I expected. I contain multitudes. You contain a truly impressive number of lies for a man who once cried during the Kessler onboarding video. That video had a dog in it. Anyone would have cried. She was still laughing when a man appeared at her elbow, and her whole posture changed, shoulders squaring, chin lifting a fraction, the way you brace before stepping into cold water. Vanessa, his voice had the smooth, over-rehearsed warmth of someone used to being the most interesting person in a room. You look incredible. Marcus. She said the name like it cost her something. I didn't know you'd be here. My firm's handling the foundation's new branding. Small world. His eyes moved to me, cataloguing, the way men do when they're deciding whether to be threatened. And you are? Nathan, I said. Vanessa's date. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or the specific irritation of a man discovering the door he closed didn't stay closed for the next person. Well, good for you two. He turned back to Vanessa. You look happy. I am, she said, and for the first time all night, I couldn't tell if she was still performing. Marcus lingered a moment too long, said something about catching up sometime that Vanessa did not acknowledge, and finally drifted away toward the bar. The tension didn't leave her shoulders until he was fully out of sight. Old boyfriend, I asked, already knowing. Ex-fiancé. We were together 4 years. He ended it 2 weeks before the wedding because he decided he, quote, needed to find himself in Portugal. That's an insane sentence. He sends a card every Christmas. I have never once responded. She exhaled, some of the brittleness leaving her voice. Thank you. For the Casablanca thing. And that. That's what a fake date is for. Is it? She looked at me sideways, something considering in her expression, like she was reading a headline draft and deciding whether to approve it. I don't think most fake dates would have handled my mother like that. I'm exceptionally good at my job. You're exceptionally good at lying, which I said I needed, so. She smiled, but it had gone quieter, less rehearsed. Come on, dinner's starting. I want you sitting next to me, so I don't have to hear Uncle Rob's theories about cryptocurrency alone. Dinner was where everything changed. We were seated at a round table with her parents, 2 board members, and Uncle Rob, who did in fact have theories about cryptocurrency. Vanessa sat close enough that her knee brushed mine under the tablecloth, and I told myself it was proximity, not intention, right up until she left it there. Somewhere between the salad and the entree, her father stood to make a toast about 40 years in the industry, about building something that outlasted you, about the people who'd stood beside him along the way. Vanessa's eyes went bright, and she blinked fast, and without thinking about it, I reached over and took her hand under the table. She looked at me. I expected her to pull away, to remember the rules, to remind me with a glance that this was choreography. Instead, she laced her fingers through mine and didn't let go. You okay? I murmured, under the applause. He's retiring, she said quietly. 40 years, and he's retiring. And I keep thinking about how much of that time I spent trying to prove I deserved my last name, instead of just being around for it. You deserve your last name. You don't know that. You've read my performance reviews. I've read your performance reviews, I agreed. They're the reason I know you deserve it. She looked at me for a long moment, the noise of the ballroom fading into something distant. You're not supposed to be good at this part, she said. The fake part was supposed to be easy. This part wasn't in the plan. What part? This, she said, and gestured vaguely between us, at our joined hands, at the 4 inches of space that had somehow become the entire evening, feeling like I'm not performing anything. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Vanessa, don't, she said quickly. Don't say anything. I'm going to blame the champagne for saying that out loud, and tomorrow we're going to go back to you turning in first drafts I reject and me pretending I don't know your coffee order. You know my coffee order? Oat milk, 1 pump vanilla, absurdly specific about the temperature. It's the least professional thing about you. You just told me you know my coffee order to prove you're not paying attention to me. She opened her mouth, closed it, and for once in the 18 months I'd worked under her, Vanessa Cole had nothing to say. The band started a slow song. Around us, couples drifted toward the dance floor, and her father pulled her mother up with the easy confidence of 40 years of practice. Vanessa watched them for a second, then looked back at me. For the performance, she said, standing, holding out her hand. One dance, purely for my mother's benefit. Purely, I agreed, and took her hand. We danced badly and close, her hand at my shoulder, mine at her waist, the kind of near stranger's distance that dissolves a little more with every turn of the song. She smelled like something warm and citrus, and when she looked up at me, the performance had entirely left her eyes. You're staring, she said. You're the one who told me to. I told you to dance, not memorize my face. I contain multitudes. She laughed, soft, and rested her forehead briefly against my shoulder, and I felt something settle in my chest that had been circling for a very long time without a place to land. Nathan, she said, quiet into my collar. Yeah. If this were real, if I hadn't asked you to marry me for 4 hours on a Tuesday morning, between coffee and a client call, would you have said yes to a date with me? The song was ending. The room was full of 100 people who could hear anything I said too loudly. I answered anyway. I'd have said yes before you finished the sentence. She lifted her head. Her eyes searched mine, looking for the joke, the exit, the safe way out of the moment. She didn't find one, because I hadn't left one. That's a problem, she said softly. Why? Because I sign your paychecks. You approve my paychecks. HR signs them. Nathan. Vanessa. I'm serious. I'm your boss. If this, whatever this is, if it goes wrong, you're the one who has to sit across from me every day for the next however many years, watching me pretend I don't remember any of this. So don't let it go wrong. She stared at me like I'd said something both absurd and exactly right. The song ended. Neither of us moved. There's a rule, she said finally. Company policy. No romantic relationships between direct reports and their supervisors. HR would have a field day. You could reassign me. I could. Something flickered across her face. Consideration. Or maybe just permission. That's a big decision to make in a hotel ballroom, because a slow song made you sentimental. I've wanted to ask you to dinner for 8 months, I said. The slow song has nothing to do with it. Vanessa went very still. 8 months? Since the Kessler pitch. You stayed until 11, rewriting my copy line by line, and you never once made me feel stupid for getting it wrong the first 6 times. And at some point around midnight, you laughed at something I said, and I thought, oh, that's a problem. That is a problem, she said. But she was smiling now, the real one, the one that showed up maybe twice a year in the office, and that I had apparently been collecting evidence of, without admitting it to myself. I have spent a year making sure no one in that building ever guessed I noticed you back. You noticed me back. I reject your semicolons because I read every draft twice, she said. The first time for content, the second time because I like your voice. The band started a new song. Neither of us moved toward the table. So what happens Monday? I asked. Monday, I talked to HR about restructuring the copy team, she said. Monday, you technically report to Priya instead of me, which she will find deeply funny, given that this entire fake dating scheme started because of her wedding. And tonight? Vanessa looked at me for a long moment, weighing something, the way she weighed a headline before she approved it. Then she stepped closer, close enough that the ballroom noise fell away entirely. Tonight, she said, I'd like you to actually kiss me. Not for my mother. Not for the board. For the record. I didn't need to be asked twice. Part 2. Monday morning. Vanessa walked into the office in her sharpest grey suit, hair back in its usual tight twist, and gave me the same brief professional nod she gave everyone else. If you hadn't been at that gala, you would never have known that 36 hours earlier, she'd kissed me in a hotel ballroom until the band packed up their instruments around us. I hated how good she was at the mask. I also understood it. There were still 11 days until HR finalized my transfer to Priya's team, and until then, every hallway glance had to look accidental. At noon, a message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. Vanessa, Conference Room C. Now, bring the Halverson deck. There was no Halverson deck. I went anyway. She was waiting with the blinds drawn, arms crossed, trying and failing to look severe. This is a terrible idea, she said, the second the door clicked shut. Which part? The secret meeting or the fact that there's no Halverson account? Both, either. I have never once used a fake project as a pretense to see someone, and I resent how effective it is. She crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed me, quick and certain, before pulling back with the guilty look of someone who'd just eaten dessert before dinner. I missed you. It's been a day and a half. This is unreasonable. Deeply unreasonable, I agreed, pulling her back in. We managed exactly 4 days of secrecy before Priya cornered me at the coffee machine with the particular smile of someone who already knows the answer to the question she's about to ask. So, she said, Vanessa, I don't know what You wore the navy suit to a gala for a woman who needed a fake date, and now you disappear into conference rooms for meetings that don't exist on anyone's calendar. Priya sipped her coffee, delighted. I set this whole thing in motion by getting married, you know. I expect an invitation. There's nothing to invite you to. Yet, she said, and walked away, infuriatingly correct. The transfer to Priya's team went through on a Thursday. That Friday, Vanessa found me at my new desk after everyone else had left, holding 2 coffees, in an almost perfect echo of the morning this whole thing started. I believe, she said, setting one down in front of me, that you're no longer my direct report. I believe you're right. Which means I can do this in the actual open, without conference room subterfuge. She held out her hand, the same firm, businesslike shake she'd offered the day she asked me to marry her for 4 hours. Nathan Cole. Would you like to have dinner with me? Really? No mother, no ex-fiancé, no board of directors, just us. I took her hand and pulled her into the chair beside mine, instead of shaking it. I told you, I'd have said yes before you finished the sentence. We dated for a year before either of us said the word love out loud, mostly because Vanessa insisted that saying it too early was, in her words, unrigorous. We said it eventually, on an ordinary Tuesday, over reheated pasta, with absolutely no string quartet or emerald dress or hotel ballroom in sight, which somehow made it feel more true than the gala ever had. We got engaged 2 years after that, at Priya and her husband's anniversary party of all places, because Vanessa said it seemed fitting to finish where the whole ridiculous plan had technically started. I didn't kneel in a ballroom. He knelt in Priya's backyard, next to a badly assembled folding table, while Uncle Rob explained cryptocurrency to someone new in the background. You could have picked a more elegant moment, Vanessa said, laughing and crying at the same time. You could have picked a more elegant way to ask me to marry you the first time, I said. I'm just matching your energy. We were married the following spring. In a small ceremony her mother helped plan with a determination that suggested she'd been waiting for this exact outcome since the moment I improvised a fake love story about Casablanca. Marcus did not attend. He did, however, send a card. Vanessa did not respond to that one either. At the reception, during our first dance, she rested her head against my shoulder the way she had that first night, and murmured, "You know, I still can't believe you agreed to marry me for 4 hours before I'd even taken you to dinner." "Best decision I ever made," I said, "even before I knew it was going to turn permanent." "You improvised the whole thing," she said. "The wedding story, the Casablanca argument, all of it. I told you, I contain multitudes." "You contain," she said, kissing me, "exactly the right amount of nonsense for me." These days, Vanessa still rejects my semicolons on principle, and I still hide the ones I know she'll cut, just so I have something to negotiate over dinner. Every year, on the anniversary of that gala, we go back to the same hotel ballroom, order the same bad champagne, and dance to whatever slow song happens to be playing, badly and close, exactly like the first time. Sometimes she still says, halfway through the song, "This is purely for the performance," and I still say, "Purely," and we both know neither of us has believed that for a very long time. What would you have done if your boss asked you to be her date for one night and everything changed by dessert? Have you ever had a fake relationship turn into something real? Tell me your story in the comments below. And for those of you who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.